Welcome back, everyone. Give us 1 second. Now the live stream button is.
I'm gonna join with Will.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Yusef Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Activist San Diego, and I would like to start off by giving a land acknowledgement. We are standing on indigenous lands of the Kumeyaay, and if you're in certain parts of the county, it's the Payakumweechum, who some people call the Luiseños. And we live on this territory as guests, and we should treat it as such. The climate impact that we put as our footprint is something that's not only hazardous to the land and the animals that live here, but it's also suicidal to human beings. So we would like to acknowledge that. And that is a great segue into what we have coming up for us today. Today, we're doing a climate check into what's going on here in our climate and in general. And Activist San Diego is pleased to be a part of bringing everyone together to talk about this topic and the solutions. And I will turn it over to Lucilla for the announcements.
Okay, hi everybody. Approximately 29 nations, 40 surface ships, 3 submarines, 14 national land forces, over 150 aircraft, and more than 25,000 personnel will participate in the biennial Rim of the Pacific, or RIMPAC exercise, scheduled June 26th to August 2nd, which begin here in San Diego and end in Hawaii. While the military's tagline is partners integrated and prepared, in reality it should be called people playing perpetual war, polluting our planet and hurting our people. If you missed last month's meeting where we went deep into this issue, be sure to check it out.
Oh no, I think we're having some audio issues.
Or she got frozen.
There we go. You got frozen. You're back now. We heard RIMPAC exercises.
Oh, okay. How far back? Well, the military's tagline is partners integrated and prepared. Did you hear that part?
So yes, yeah, right after to the to catch last month's meeting on YouTube. That's what we heard.
Oh, okay. So since then, Activist San Diego has officially joined the Council RIMPAC Coalition, and we hope that you will join the many events happening this week, including on Wednesday at 6 p.m. We will be engaging the public outside Seafood City and National City. On Thursday at 6 p.m. is an art build and teach-in El Cajon. Saturday is an all-day summit, a great time for us to build together. And Sunday will be a major mobilization, and we need everyone to bring their friends. Also on Saturday, June 29th, we will join our partners officially kicking off organizing for this year's Kale Fest with an open house from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Gathering Place in City Heights. This open house is an opportunity for organizations and individuals who are interested in participating in the September 21st Kale Festival to learn more and begin planning with us. Our July Community Summit will be held on Monday, July 15th, both in person with a potluck at the Joyce Pierce Community Center in Hillcrest, and on Zoom for those who can't join us physically. And lastly, if you're not already listening, be sure to tune in our radio station, KNSJ 89.1 FM, for community-powered music, culture, and news. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Lucilla, for those announcements. We will put links in the uh, chat or recopy those in the chat. And you can also find information on our Instagram page. Is probably one of the best places to check at Activist SD. If you're not subscribed to our emails, make sure you do go to our website and subscribe, and make sure you hit the confirmation email when you get it. Otherwise, we're not able to email you. So now it is my honor and pleasure to introduce the amazing Dr. Cherry Robinson. She is the San Diego chapter chair of the Climate Reality Project. And she has spent her lifetime as a consultant, a coach, and a trainer who has helped individuals recognize how to get to really understand their place in the world and help them understand their impacts on the world, on the planet, and basically with an effort to create a healthier planet for us all, and really connecting both the individual to the collective, to the whole. And really excited that she was able to join us tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to her. She's going to give a presentation, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. And we're going to spend the bulk of the program on this. So we've got time. So please write questions in the chat if you think of them in advance. But we will, excited to have you, Cherry, all yours.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me enough time to actually do this. Lots of times people try to get me to do this in 20 minutes. It's just not doable. This is the short version of the materials I have to share with you this evening. I will tell you that okay, let me back up and say, my name's Dr. Cherry Robinson. I'm from the Climate Reality Project, and I'm here to talk to you about the reality of climate change. And I may, in fact, tell you things you already know, but stay with me, bear with me, because I will then tell you about things you don't know. And hopefully at the end, we'll be able to share some information and talk about things so that we all know more than we did when we came in tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. I can share my screen, right? Okay. I'm going to try to get through this quickly. However, if you really have a question that you just can't hold and you don't want to go on because nothing's making sense, please stop me. I am not a TV screen. I am here for you, and I am here to answer your questions and to make sure that you're coming along for the ride. Okay, so the Climate Reality Project is the brainchild of Al Gore. He took his monies from his books and his movies, and he put together this training program where he goes around the world and trains leaders all over the globe. We are now in almost, I think, all but one country in the world, and we have offices on every continent. The really beautiful part of that is that because I'm a trained climate reality leader, I get to share resources with all those people, and they get to share their resources with me. And so what you see before you tonight is the culmination of shared resources, primarily focused on the East Coast of the United States, but not entirely. And so don't think that just because it isn't here, California is not in just as big a climate crisis. It is. But here we go. The reason this is called the Truth in 10, as you can see on my slide, is that Mr. Al Gore can do this in 10 minutes. Most of the rest of us call it the Truth in 45 or 50, because none of us can talk that fast and don't want to. This is our home. I think sometimes we look at this picture and we see a globe. But what we don't see is that it's our home. It's our shared home. It's not shared with just the other people here tonight, but by all the people on the whole planet. Because pollution doesn't have a border, and water doesn't have a place that it stops because you're not comfortable with it. So we have to recognize our contribution and our share. So when we talk about climate change, we talk about it in three different perspectives. We say, well, do you really think we have to change? And then we say, well, do you really think we can change? And then, and I will tell you this now, the absolute most important piece of this entire presentation is 4 letters, WILL. It is the most critical 4-letter word that we have before us now. So do we have to change? So this is basic science, right? If you look at the little what do you call that? The layer around the planet. Looks like a little blanket. So solar radiation comes from the sun, it passes through our atmosphere, and it gets to the planet. And the radiation is absorbed by the earth and it warms it. Now here's where we get in trouble. Some of the energy is radiated back. However, see that layer, the little blanket layer? As the little blanket layer gets thicker, we are less and less able to bounce the solar radiation back off into the solar system. Well, why does that matter? Because like anything, if you're keeping all your heat in, you're going to get overheated, as probably most of you have cause to understand right now because of our weather change. Now, we talked a few minutes ago about our atmosphere. This is it. This is our atmosphere. It's in, when you look at the size and the shape of the globe, it's about the consistency of the veneer over a piece of wood. You probably have wood veneer over something in your house, or just a thin layer, maybe the upholstery over your furniture. That's all the space we have. And right now, we are spewing 162 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into it every day. Every day, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. There are no holidays for climate change. So the biggest sorts of greenhouse gases are probably things that you know. The burning of fossil fuels, which is air transport, oil production, land transport, coal mining. Now, the subsequent pieces are things like the melting of permafrost. The more we change the climate, the more we cause things like crop burning and thawing of permafrost, the faster climate change happens. So here we are, fossil fuels. If you look at where this really starts to take off, it starts, of course, around the Industrial Revolution, but it wasn't until after World War II and then the 1850s when pretty much every family had a car, every family had this, and every family had that. Before that, it wasn't like that. Not everybody was burning fossil fuels every day. So the energy trapped by man-made global warming pollution is akin to 750,000 first-generation atomic bombs blowing up every day. This is kind of a scary number, isn't it? I'm going to say a lot of scary things tonight. I don't want you to dismiss them because they're scary. I would like you to think about them, because only in appreciating where we are can we figure out where we need to go to next. And we're going to talk about that before we're done tonight. So if you look at the timeline on the bottom, we go from 1880 to 2023. And as you see, there is no deterioration of the immediacy of climate change. You don't see that climate change is slowing down at all. There was a year, I want to say back in 2020, we thought for about 5 minutes, oh, it's getting better. And then 2020 was over and it didn't get better. So the last 10 of the hottest years on record have been in the last 10 years. And I will also tell you that 20 of the hottest years on record have been in the last 20 years. These are air temperatures in the United States, August 23rd, 2023. Most of the slides you're going to see here and most of the data you're going to see are fairly recent and have information that is, within the last 6 to 8 months. So you see, if you look over here at the this part go away. You see the darker parts. You see the darker parts. Those are the parts that are really, really bad. And as you see, San Diego County is bad, but not as horrible as Phoenix or Dallas or Oklahoma City or New Orleans. Backwards, forwards, forwards, backwards. Heat is the #1 climate-related cause of death in the United States. I believe it's the #2 cause of death in the world. Phoenix. In just 1 week, 570 people were treated for heat-related illness. We don't think of heat, just heat itself. We think, oh, it's so hot. What am I going to do? But we don't think of heat as making you sick. Unless you're a lucky person like me, who, if I'm outside long enough, I get heat sick and I get a headache and I get sick to my stomach. And if you are unfamiliar with the first signs of heat exhaustion, those are the first signs. If you start to get there, you need to get safe. So heat in particular places in the world are going to make this part of the world completely unlivable. The tropics are where 3 billion people live. It's where the majority of people on the planet live. And this is what they look like right now. This is what they will look like by 2070. Now, what does that really mean? You see the really dark part? The really dark part are places that people cannot currently exist on the planet. They cannot live there. They can't breathe because there's not enough water, all of those things. But do you see all the darker lines? By 2070, all of those places will also be uninhabitable. So where do you think those people are going to go? Do you think that all those people in South America who don't have anywhere to be anymore because it's too hot to live there, they've got children, they've got families, they're going to have to go somewhere. And I want you to begin to think about climate migration, because all of these people that will no longer have a place to live will have to go somewhere. Most of India will be uninhabitable. Swaths of China will be uninhabitable. Almost all of Brazil will be uninhabitable. Now, this is a picture taken, that's actually, I believe, Mount Shasta in the background. This is a picture taken of immigrants coming from Mexico and Guatemala. And I have to tell you, if you look at the backs of these people, none of them are very old, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is that old people and very young people can't walk 1,000 miles. However, if you cannot feed your children and you cannot give them water and you cannot put shoes on their feet, you have to go somewhere and do something. And we have basically taken most of the water away from places like Guatemala. Farmers that lived in Guatemala and farmed the land for generations can no longer do so because there's no water there anymore because climate change has taken that water and put it elsewhere. Now, we've talked about the planet heating up. So where's that heat going? Well, does anybody know how much of the planet is water? Unmute yourself and tell me if you know. Come on, somebody does. I know you do. Don't make me call your names. You won't like it.
I want to say
Come on,
maybe
Francis.
96, or is that humans?
No, no, but it is
Yeah.
high, but it is not that high. It is not that high. Anybody else?
You want me to give him a chance or should I chime in?
Go ahead, Susan.
Is it about 75%?
It's about 75%. Yes, 75% of the planet. Now, if you're looking at this thing and it says 93% of the extra heat trapped by man-made global warming pollution goes into the ocean, obviously more of that heat is going into the ocean than it's going on the land. So even though we feel the heat and we feel the change in atmosphere, we don't feel it the way the ocean does. There are now such a thing as ocean heat waves. There are also polar heat waves. The polar caps are melting 2 to 3 times faster. They're heating up 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the planet. They are disappearing 2 to 3 times faster than scientists had predicted even as much as 10 or 12 years ago. So this is June 14th, 2023. And if you look, here's Africa, here's the Atlantic. And do you see how hot this water is? This is hotter than average. All of that water is hotter than average. Now, a lot of our food comes from the ocean, but there are bigger problems, not bigger, but different problems. So the global heat content changed since 1960. I think you see the extreme. Yes? Half of the increase in ocean heat content has occurred in the last 20 years. Some of you may only be 22 or 25 or 19, and that's your entire lifetime. When I do presentations for people in college or in high school, it is their entire lifetime. They've never known a time, nor will they ever know a time, where their climate change is not an active character in their life. This is what happens when you heat up. Somebody take themselves off mute and tell me, when you heat water up, what happens to it? It's not
boils.
It
just like
evaporates.
it evaporates, it boils. Yes, all of those things are true. Okay,
Yeah.
so when it evaporates, it goes up into the sky. And the sky is now warmer than it used to be, so it can hold more water. Well, what happens when all of that water is now in our atmosphere? This is what happened. The tropical storms, every tropical storms, reached devastating effects. Southwest Pacific, North Indian, all of the ocean, Northwest Pacific, Northeast Pacific. These are all storms that have taken place in the last year. This is Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. It pretty much devastated a huge piece. There was not a whole lot left that was did not need to be rebuilt. 95-mile-an-hour winds, 12 hours, 115 miles per hour in a single day. And that's what happens when that happens. That's the aftermath. Malawi was hit by Cyclone Freddy. 1,200 people were killed. Their infrastructure is not as good as ours. And part of the reason for that is that they haven't had the time to develop and the monies to develop that we have. However, most of these people are not driving carbon fuel engines, and they are not necessarily, I would imagine most of these families don't have a car for every family, and they don't have air conditioning inside, and some of them don't have it inside. Part of the reason that I show you the pictures of all over the planet is this is not one place. This is our third home, like we talked about in the very beginning. They received 24 inches of rain in 40 hours. Can you imagine 24 inches of rain in 24 hours? In 40 hours, sorry, 40 hours. Can you imagine that here in San Diego? We had less than half of that this last winter. And people are still trying to recreate their own homes. So in 2022, this is Hurricane Ida. And that's the effect of Hurricane Ida. We can't sustain this. My point being, we can't sustain this. We can't continue to live like this. And yet we heated up the planet, and this is what happens when you heat up the planet. The water goes up into the air can hold more because it's hotter, and it holds it all and it drops it in one place. Now, hydrological systems are things that we probably all learned in school. You have evaporation, you have precipitation, and you have waterfalls. And so the problem here is that we've messed with this system. We change things so much that the moisture just sits in the sky. And do you see where those curly cues are? If you look on the left side of the picture, you'll see some curly cue action starting to pass. I'm going to show you what that is in just a minute. So the downpours get bigger. These are atmospheric rivers. Remember when I talked about the curly cues? These are the curly cues. What's an atmospheric river? If you guys all heard of atmospheric, raise your hand if you have not heard of an atmospheric river. Please don't be shy. Okay, cool. Because you know what? When I first heard about this, I was like, atmospheric river? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? How's there a river in the sky? You know what? I was shocked and amazed. And this was only about 7 years ago. So I was like, wait, what? Okay, there are rivers that run in channels through that are manipulated by the jet stream. And the one that affects California the most is the one called the Pineapple Express. Out here is Hawaii, and this atmospheric river comes and it hits mostly Northern California, but it, as we are well aware, has worked its way down into Southern California. Most atmospheric rivers carry as much river water as 27 Mississippi rivers. I know. It's just like, wait, what? What? Seriously. And I don't know if any of you have been to Yosemite recently, but I was in Yosemite last year, and the woman who was driving the bus was talking about AR this and AR that. And I'm like, I finally, when we stopped, I said, "Are you mean AR atmospheric river?" And she said, "Yes." And up until then, I didn't realize that we were using terms like AR1, AR4, AR5 as communication devices to explain to people how bad precipitation is going to be. Yosemite Valley has been closed more in the last 5 years than in its history because of the AR5s. This is something called a rain bomb. Remember I was just talking about atmospheric rivers? Well, just like regular rivers have waterfalls. Atmospheric rivers have rain bombs, which is the end of the river all the water drops and plops in one place. And I'm sure you can imagine the devastation that that is. Heavy I can't even say the word. Precipitation events are becoming more frequent in the entire United States. So only 1% more frequent in places like the Pacific Northwest. They're actually hurting for water. But plus 17% in the Southwest, plus 60% in the Northeast. In the Northeastern United States, with 4+ inches of precipitation have increased by 84% since the 1950s. That's almost 100%. Days with 5 inches of rain or more have increased by 103 times. And this is what happens when you get that. We don't talk, you know, we talk about flooding generally in a very specific way. Like we talk about the flooding in San Diego, we talk about the flooding in California. We don't talk very much about the flooding up and down the Pacific seaboard, the eastern seaboard. But it's really desperate. This is Brooklyn 9 months ago. When I first watched this video, I thought about actually being on that subway, and it just scared me to death. This is ground zero. Ground zero, where when Mr. Gore started talking about the fact after when they were building the ground zero site where the World Trade Center was, they said, "Oh, it will never flood here. It will never flood here." This is Maine in December 2023. And Vermont. I want you to begin to look at the numbers. This is an estimated $5 billion in damage. There have been some other numbers earlier in the presentation, but we're going to get to those in a little bit. So worldwide extreme weather catastrophes are clearly on the rise. And it doesn't seem to matter whether it is drought, excessive rain, or fire, or heat. It's all there. $600 billion more than the previous 10 years. That doesn't mean it's only 600 billion. That means it's 3.8 trillion, which is $600 billion extra. I know when we get to numbers that high, it's hard to even imagine that they're real. Like, what does that even mean, $1 billion? I'm not sure I know, but I know it's way more than what we can afford. So the same heat that's out across the water and it pulls water up from the ocean, it also pulls water up from the land. And pulling water from land is a drought. So global intensity of rainfalls and droughts. As you can see, they are somewhat but not exacting mirror images of each other because it depends on where you are. So in the American Southwest, it is the driest as it's been in 1,200 years. Now, how do we know that? Well, we know that by taking cores of the earth. We know that by looking at cores from trees. If you've never been to the Bristol Cone Pine Forest in up near not to northern, it's near Yosemite, but it's east of Yosemite. They have trees there that have lived for 4 and 5,000 years. They are the oldest living trees on the planet. And if you've never been, it is really something phenomenal to see. They grow incredibly slowly, and they only grow in very few places on the planet. So this is correlation, but not causation. What does that mean? It means that, yes, these things happen at the same time, but there's no absolute proof that one causes the other. Though, if it's really hot and it's really dry, you're more likely to spark a fire. Were a bunch of fires in Northern California, Sacramento area, where Francis and I were last week. I think that they're still not out yet. And we had a couple fires down here, but it's really early in the year. I mean, it's only June. Fire season used to start in September, October. California firefighters now say that California fire season is 365 days a year. This was 3 months ago. It's the largest fire in Texas. Because of drought, here are active, this was in July 28th, so almost a year ago. But these are the active fires on that particular day. And what I want you to pay attention to most assiduously on this slide is not just look at all the fires in the United States. Yeah, those are bad. But I want you to look at the fires in Canada. Does anybody know what this swath of land there is called? It's kind of all green. Does anybody know what that is? It's
The Great
okay.
Plains.
It's the boreal forest. The boreal forest is the last continuous forest in the world. It is the way we say rainforests are the lung of the planet. This is one of the most important lungs on our planet, and we are burning it alive. And we are burning the people who live there alive. There is a movie out produced by somebody who is a climate reality leader called The Issue with Tissue. One of the reasons that these forests are burning the way that they are is that most of the toilet paper and tissue paper that you use every day comes from the boreal forest. And if you want to do one thing to make a difference, it would be to stop buying. If you would like, I have a toilet paper report card that will tell you that pretty much if you're buying your toilet paper at any major grocery store or any major or Costco, Smart and Final, none of them sell climate friendly toilet paper. None of them sell anything that you should be using. Trader Joe's carries something called recycled toilet paper, or recycled paper toilet paper. It's pretty good. But we use a product called Give a Crap. And it is bamboo toilet paper that we have shipped to our house. And we share it with everybody we know because it works just fine, and I'm not killing the boreal forest to use it. So I'm trying to switch over as many people as I can. There's my one little blurb. But if you have the opportunity to see the movie, The Issue with Tissue, I know that Michael would bring the movie here if he had a host for the movie, somebody that could access the theater and bring an audience, and he would come with the movie. This is the wildfire smoke over New York and New Jersey a year ago. And this wildfire smoke mostly came from Canada. Most of the eastern seaboard was just polluted with wildfire smoke most of the summer last summer. remember earlier when I talked about the poles melting. The Arctic is now warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world. Can you imagine being 50 degrees above normal? Let's say normal for us is 73 degrees. So 50 degrees above normal would be 128 degrees. 123 degrees. Let's say we said 50 degrees less than normal would still be 25 degrees. That is what we are putting places like Greenland through and the beings that live there. The polar bears, the seals, the walruses, they aren't driving cars, they aren't eating hamburgers, and they are not creating climate change. And yet they are living with our sins. These are the top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise in 2070. And this is the population at risk, the number of people that will die and or be unhomed. And notice lots of these are in India, China. Miami is number 8. But remember what I said. These are places that are huge populations of people. They're going to have to go somewhere. When their homes are underwater, they're going to have to go somewhere. So they're either going to come here, or they're going to go to Europe, or they're going to go to Canada. They're going to go somewhere where they can feed their children and make sure that they're not going to get swept away in a flood. Now, remember when I told you to look at those money numbers? These are the top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise in terms of assets, in terms of how much is it going to cost us. And, you don't like to think of people and money and look at one and then look at the other, but really that's what we're doing. Miami and New York are in the top 3, and they are huge centers of humanities for the United States. Imagine if we wiped out New York City. And, 20 years ago, when Al Gore said, don't put that there, it's going to flood. And they said, oh, no, that will never flood. Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at a map of New York City, but I'm amazed. It does not shock me at all that all of it's going to be underwater. From 2010 to 2010, I don't remember why that's like that. I knew at some point. 16% of these families are now in high risk flood zones. So they went from being, I think that's from 2020 to 2020. I think the slide's just wrong. So again, where are these people going to go? They're going to move to California. Because though some of us will be underwater, not nearly as many of us will be underwater. Maybe they'll move north, but Vermont's not looking very good right now. Maybe they'll move to the Midwest, but weather in Chicago is not so good either. Annual high tide flooding frequency in the U.S. Now, the blue dots are the flooding is increasing, and the red dots are flooding is accelerating exponentially. Where do you see a red dot that is very close to home? Come on, unmute yourself. Where do you see it?
Right here at home, this is Lucy.
Yeah, and Imperial Beach, Ocean Beach. I mean, these are places, this year when we had all that flooding, most of us were really surprised. And I was like, Imperial Beach floods, I'm not in any way surprised. Ocean Beach floods, I'm not in any way surprised. The fact that I don't know if any of you have been to the new concert center down by the conference center. in downtown San Diego. They put millions of dollars into the Rady cell. It's of dollars, billions. And every bit of evidence we have says that that thing will be underwater in the next 15 years. The San Diego Convention Center, it's not, you can build all the water walls you want. It's not going to stop. When the sea level rises, when the poles melt and all that water goes into the ocean, it's got to go somewhere. You know, if you have a bowl of water and you dump several gallons of water into it, it's gonna overflow. Only this, of course, is in reverse. But note that this is the Eastern Seaboard. I mean, people are not going to be able to keep living there. This is Miami, this dot right here. I think that's Miami anyway. But these people are going to have to go somewhere. In Miami, high tide flooding is a daily occurrence. Daily. Every day, the streets flood in the city of Miami. And you know what? People don't move. You know why? Because they're used to it. Because they think, well, we did this last year and it was okay. And we did the year before that. Do any of you guys know about this theory that a frog is cold-blooded? But if you put them in a pot and you make the heat in the pot go up very, very slowly, the frog won't hop out because its temperature raises with the water temperature. It's slowly getting cooked. That's what we're doing. We're slowly cooking ourselves. And we just keep thinking, oh, it's okay. It's not like well, it was like this last year and we were okay, but every year it's gonna get worse. And yeah, you might have been okay last year, but are you gonna be okay next year? I don't know. I know that I was in Encinitas at an ICO Fest a month or two ago, and I was like, man, this is the coldest May I have ever been through. And a woman says to me, I have lived here 30 years and it has always been like this. Well, I grew up in San Diego County, and let me tell you, it has not always been like this. The last couple weeks of May and the first couple weeks of June have been overcast, but not 60s until, I mean, when did we go from 60 to 70? What, 3 weeks ago? And now we're at 80? This is not normative. But she's convinced herself that it's always been like that. 12 million people could lose their homes due to sea level rise if we warm to 1.2 degrees centigrade. Now, what does that really mean? Well, what it means is all of us in this work are trying to keep the degree. Susan, look up for me. How much is 2 degrees centigrade translated? I don't remember what it is in Fahrenheit. But if we can keep, thank you. If we can keep to 1.5 degrees centigrade, lots of bad things are still going to happen, but we're not going to, the worst perpetrations of climate change, we can save ourselves from, but only if we act quickly and if we act distinctly. The single biggest health threat facing humanity is climate change. This was the World Health Organization in 2021. I would like you to know that the Pentagon in 2014 said the greatest threat to the security of the United States is climate change. That was 10 years ago. And yet the Pentagon, and as you're familiar with, the naval exercises happening between here and Hawaii over the next several weeks, they're still burning lots and lots of carbon. As we move further into places that we probably ought not be, we get more and more infectious diseases. COVID is a perfect example of this, and it's part of the reason that this picture is taken in China is that because people were so far into the jungle, we were exposed to diseases that had we never been exposed to them, we would have been fine. But because they exist on the planet and they don't kill lots of creatures, but they're going to kill us. So every year, more infectious diseases move further out than they ever used to be. So if you look at all of they came from being small dots in one place on the planet to now being many dots all over the planet. Dengue patients in Brazil. Now, dengue fever didn't used to be in Brazil, but now there's a dengue crisis in Brazil. Dengue fever used to be primarily in Africa, but now it's everywhere. Well, everywhere that's tropical. The other thing we know about flooding is that waterborne disease comes right after flooding. So you can maybe escape the worst effects of the flooding, but then if you get cholera or many of the other infectious diseases, because you're around water that's contaminated and or because you can't get clean water or because you can't even boil your water because you don't have access to a place to do that, you can see how it precipitates. Just the burning of fossil fuels, from air pollution, causes 8.7 million people to die every year. 8.7 million. And I will tell you that most of them are not probably your neighbors, because most of these people live in neighborhoods that are low and no income. They're neighborhoods of color, and lots of them are places where there's much more severe poverty than there is in San Diego. Tijuana River Valley is probably the biggest evidence. I'm sure that there are people dying every year in the Tijuana River Valley from fossil fuels, direct fossil fuels. This is this is a picture of what's known as Cancer Alley. And Cancer Alley is a place in the South where people work in oil refineries and they live there and they live all of the 30 or 40 short years of their lives. And their families live there and they raise their children there. Why? Because they have a job, they have a home, and they don't have enough money to go anywhere else. 40% of the people in the United States live in counties that do not meet EPA air standards. So we set these air standards, but we don't currently do anything about them. In East Asia, the number is 3 out of 10 instead of 1 out of 10. And the reason that that's true is that they're still using predominantly coal-fired power plants. Here we have changed some of that, and things are getting better, but not better enough, faster enough. Again, I'm going to remind you of the polar bears and the walruses and the seals that don't eat hamburgers and don't drive cars and don't smoke cigarettes. These birds did not start that fire. These birds did not burn that carbon, and yet they are dying on our dime. We now risk losing 50% of all land-based species in this century, meaning, and I know a century sounds like a long time to you, right? But is anybody on this call close to 70 years old? I'm closer than I want to be, but I mean, it's 75 years. It's just not that long. And 75 years from now, they won't be able to see birds. So a while ago, and several times, I have talked to you about the numbers and the numbers adding up. And our big deal is, oh my gosh, we can't afford to fix climate change. And I say to you, we can't afford not to fix climate change. There isn't a choice. We are the only first world nation in the world where this is still even a conversation. We're still the only first world country in the world where this is a political debate and not a human debate. This is life and death for us on this planet. The planet will make it. Most of the animals won't. And the animals had nothing to do with this. Most of the people in poor countries didn't do it, but they're going to die. It's not a small thing. It's a huge thing. And you have an opportunity to make a difference, but you have to make it. So do we have to change? Well, yeah, if you want to survive, we have to change. Can we change? And yeah, we really can. And you know, I see every day in the news people are saying, "Oh, electric cars are bad." And don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of the lithium ion battery. I do understand the damage that lithium ion mining does, nor do we know what to do with these batteries at the end of their life. There are car companies that will tell you that they're going to take care of the car from birth to death, meaning from the time they create it till the time it's disposed of, but they don't know what they're going to do with the battery. There's no good answer for that. And yet, it is still better for the climate than burning fossil fuels. So it's not a good answer, but it's a better answer, and it's the best answer we currently have. The International Energy Agency determined that we have all the technology we need to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030. That is 6 years from now. We have technology. We could do what we need to do, but we have to do it. And we who live in the United States have to do it first. Because we are a baby born in the United States is still the biggest danger to climate of any other baby born on the planet. So if you see, we have windmills, we have solar farms, that's energy storage there. And this is, what's that one on the right? I think that is regenerative farming. We have electric cars, we have heat pump HVAC systems. I don't know what that guy's doing, but those are LED lights. Have you guys all replaced your light bulbs with LED light bulbs? Not fluorescent, LED. I know you think you changed them a while ago, but that was fluorescent, and now you have to change them to LED. In fact, if you've gone looking for a light bulb in recent history, you'll notice you can't really buy many different kinds of light bulbs anymore. But you may have a stock of light bulbs. Gosh knows I did. So observed temperatures. Okay. 1880 to 1899. You know what? I'm going to skip this slide because it's complicated. Okay, so here we are. Once the world reaches net zero, CO2 emissions, global temperatures will stop increasing in 3 to 5 years. What that means is, let's say we do what they said, and we are able to stop the increase of carbon being released into our atmosphere by 2030. Let's say we're able to do that. In 3 to 5 years, things will stop and begin to reverse. $30 years. So there is hope. We do have a chance, and we do have a chance of making things right in the immediate future. So green energy, sometimes I think I'm not very old and sometimes I think I'm really old because I remember when people talked about windmills and basically that meant some little Dutch boy 100 years ago. Um, but I'm like, what do you mean windmills actually work? Well, yeah, and windmills actually work. Well, yeah, they work on a farm in Minnesota, but no, they work everywhere. Offshore wind could help to replace um, the amount of electricity that we use if that's all we did was use wind. And you see, we are using more and more wind. And you see that none of this even really started to take off until like 2009, 2012. So 10, 12 years ago. If this is where we are now, can you imagine what we can do if we really put our minds to it in 10 years? The US as a whole could produce 13 times the current electricity needs with just onshore wind. Okay, so what's the problem with that? I will tell you what the problem with it is. It's the same problem that you have with oil, but we have the infrastructure for oil. So you have green energy, basically free energy. Wind blows, sun shines. Now you have to harness it, you have to hold it, and then you have to send it where it needs to go. Now, the closer you harness it and hold it to where you need it, the less equipment we have to put in place and the less money we have to spend to get it there. You know, oil, piping oil has killed many, many rivers in this country and all over the world. But if we didn't have to pipe the energy from the windmills, if it was used where it is, if we had windmills across the country, imagine what we could do. Oh, next slide. Globally, wind could supply worldwide electricity something 40 times over if all we used was wind. But again, you have to harness it, you have to store it, you have to send it where it goes. Storage is still not that easy. We still need to come up with a better battery. We're not quite there yet. Every time I send another kid off to college, I say, please go figure out how to make a better battery. Because if you can do that, you could really, truly, beyond the shadow of doubt, save the world. So the same thing is true of solar energy. So we thought we could only get this much, right? But the truth of the matter is that we could get a lot more than that. We thought we could only do a little when we could really do a lot. We've exceeded our what we thought we could do by 445 times. So solar installations. Note that we had solar back here in 1980. We had solar pretty easily to come by back in 1980. It was more expensive. It was a lot more expensive. But 2005, things started to get better, and I'll tell you why that's true in a minute. But note that once they did, and once kind of people could get their hands on the technology, they're using it. It needs to be supported, and it needs to be supported by all of us and not just some of us. This is why it got cheaper. Because in 1976, a watt of solar electricity cost 80 cents, and now it costs less than 11 cents. Sorry, $80. Now it costs 11 cents. I know. I see people look at the slide and go, wait, what did she just say? Yeah, that's not what the slide says. It isn't what it says. But you follow what I'm saying, right? Yeah, of course we do. Okay. We could put solar everywhere. But what our current utility company is going to tell you is that they want to put solar out in the desert. Our current utility company, SDG&E, I will use their name. Yes, I will. Because they not nice people. They not nice players. People that work for them may be just fine, but the people who own them, not fine. Could you imagine every building in this city had solar on it. If your house, if your apartment building, if your parents' house, if your parents' apartment building, if every single one of those had solar on them, the amount of energy we could create and keep locally. So we don't have to pipe it in from the desert. Because if we put a solar farm out in the desert and SDG&E now wants to charge us for the luxury of doing that, to build the solar farm out in the desert, and oh, by the way, destroy the desert and destroy the creatures that live there. And then they're going to run high voltage lines all the way from the desert into the cities, making yet again another risk of fires where people and animals will die when they light on fire. Why can't we just put it here? We can't put it here because SDG&E doesn't own every one of those buildings, and they stand to lose money if we can control our energy ourselves. And it really is about money. It's about, I'm going to keep mine and I don't care what you get. They are putting solar farms. We are putting solar and wind farms up lots and lots of places and lots of good places. And things are getting better. But could you imagine if the parking lot you parked in today had a solar panel over the top of it so that your car stayed at a reasonable degree when you got back in it? Can you imagine how nice that would be? And you know what the added plus is? Solar bounces some of that solar radiation back up into the atmosphere instead of sucking it down on the asphalt and heating the asphalt up. 2023 new solar projection was installed. A new solar project was installed in every 30 seconds in the United States. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? I think it's pretty cool. So this is what we could do. This is what is possible. 80% of the capacity is from solar, wind, and battery storage. We could do this right now. Could you imagine if this is what we can do now? And we have so many people who are not doing it, and so many people who are saying, oh, nay. And so many people who are walking up to me at events and saying, oh, but it's too late. It's all over. There's nothing we can do. Come on, get with the program. Think positive. There are things we can do. And let's say the worst thing that happens is you do it and then things get better. Maybe they're not perfect, but they get better. Wouldn't you like better? I would like better. So the same thing that we said about wind is true of solar, only that it would take even less solar energy to fill the world's energy needs. So 1 hour, if we could capture all of the solar energy that reaches the planet for an hour, we could fill all the world's energy needs for a year. But again, you have to harness it, you have to hold it, you have to get it where it needs to go. I know that people are telling you that EVs are on the decline, but that's a lie. And that's what people who are selling carbon vehicles want you to think. Oh no, I have to buy a hybrid because at least I'll still be able to use. Come on, 300 miles. If you're going to drive 300 miles without taking a break, you have bigger problems. 300 miles, stop, get lunch, charge your vehicle, get back in it. Most of us don't drive 300 miles in a day, and the very few people that do, again, stop, get lunch, move on. According to Bloomberg, the world here's the thing about this. Let me say this about that. If you're investing in a carbon-based automobile or a carbon-based HVAC system or a washer or dryer for your home, you are wasting your money. You are investing in the past. There is not, even if you don't believe in climate change, even if you don't believe in all the things that I've talked about, you do know that carbon fuels are a limited resource. Yeah, you could reproduce them in several million years, but not at the rate of speed that we're burning them. So there's a limited amount of gas left for us to burn. And if you buy a gas vehicle, you keep yourself in debt to the people who own oil, and you keep yourself in debt to that vehicle that is gonna just, I mean, it's sooner than you think. So I would love you to buy an electric vehicle. I can't afford to buy one yet, but my understanding is you can get a used electric vehicle for about $10,000, and the government will give you back 4,000 of that $10,000. So you could buy a used electric vehicle for about $6,000, which is not nothing. I'm not saying it's nothing. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me. It's probably a lot of money to you. People say, oh, but I won't be able to plug my vehicle in. New chargers are going in everywhere, every day, everywhere, every day, and better chargers are going in everywhere, every day. Pretty soon you'll be able to go over to your friend's house and plug your car in because everyone will have one. Well, not everyone, but you follow my drift. So the accumulation storage, what we need to do, remember when I said if you can build a better battery, you will change the world? That's what we need. We need a better battery. We need a cleaner battery. We need one that's easier to use. We need one that's less likely to burn, all of that. So battery storage is being built all over the place. Investments in renewables. Lots of people are changing, they're divesting from oil and gas. And if your retirement monies are still in oil and gas, you might want to rethink that, because remember what I said, there's only so much of it left. And if you keep most of your up until now, oil and gas has paid you back a premium, but that's not going to happen going forward. So the other thing about this is there are more green jobs. There are more green jobs growing, and they are growing every day here in California, and everywhere else, but especially here in California. Um, one of the best rated green jobs is to be one of the people that gets up on the windmill and fixes it. You don't need a college degree, but you do need to not have a fear of heights. I'm doing better about that, but I think that I'm still afraid enough of heights that I'm not going to get that job. As of 2022, there were 3.1 million clean energy jobs in the US, and the sector's growing faster. So if you're in college right now, or if you don't want to go to college, there's work out there, and there's good money work, not just service jobs. There's good money work out there working in the green energy industry. So can we change? Well, yeah, we can. And here we are at the crux. Will we change? Do you have the willingness to make a change in your life and the lives of everyone around you? Are you willing to make the changes yourself and then try to get everyone around you to change? Well, I don't know about you, but when I go out to dinner, in fact, I went out to lunch with Francis once, and it took about 20 minutes for the three people who were standing in very hot sun to decide where they were going to go to eat. And that was only because Francis finally said, I want to go here. And we said, okay. Okay, but it's hard for everybody to make the same decision. It's not an easy thing to do. If we can't decide where we're going to have dinner, how are we going to decide where we want our entire world to go? But a miracle happened in 2015, 9 years ago, and virtually every country on the earth said, yes, we're willing to change. And can you imagine? If you can get 4 people decide where to go to lunch, but you have every country in the world meet together in Paris for a couple of weeks. Now, Paris is a nice city, but it's not that nice. It's still a city. And they said yes. If we can do that, Imagine what else we could do. So these are places that have committed to a net zero target, meaning they've committed to saying we'll be net zero by X year. Now, a lot of them, their goal is too far out in the future, but at least they have a goal. At least they're saying, yes, this is the direction we're headed, even if we're not there yet. And look, we're way over there in the corner. We had this list for a long time and the US wasn't on it. Over 245 global companies have made a commitment to 100% renewable because gosh knows global companies have a lot more power than global nations sometimes, not all the times. But thank goodness that all of these companies have decided to make different choices. So the Inflation Reduction Act passed. What does that mean? That means that there is more money for solar, there is more money for wind, there are more money for all the green infrastructure that we need if we use it, but we have to use it. So lots of people have said, oh, well, I can get money to build this building with all green energy, and I'm gonna get money back from the government to do it. Oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. Because it's getting easier and easier to build with all green energy. And so it'll be easier and easier to find a place to live that has those options. So more jobs, more green jobs, and more good green jobs. People are kind of done. Not everybody, but lots of people that are in the know and people who have heard this talk and many others like it are saying, yeah, we're done. We're done doing this. And when you see this number of people stand up for science, stand up and say, I'm willing to make a change. And it's important that we all do that. This is when we make a change. This is how we make a change. This is how we change our world. Because this is our home. And it's the only one we have. So thank you for your time and your attention this evening. I know that not everything I've told you has been particularly fun, but I really appreciate you listening. So, questions? Thank you. Yeah, Martin.
I'd like to know what is the kind of organizing agenda that goes along with this. It's a great presentation, a great summation of everything. And in terms of action for grassroots organizations and base building, what are the recommendations coming off of this?
Well, my personal recommendation, and I've been doing this for a while now, my personal recommendation is use the bases that already exist because there are an abundance of environmental organizations in every city in the United States at this point, even cities in states, very, very red states, in states that are coal mining states. There's organizations in all of those places that care about this, that know about this, that are willing to organize. Now, they're not all perfect and they're not all great, but they're there. And a lot of the actions that I take and that people in my organization take are teaching people what they can do to make a difference in their household and in their community and in their government. Because we've gotten to the point where it's not just about changing your light bulbs and changing your diet. It's about changing the big decisions that we make, not just the small ones. It's about getting rid of companies like SDG&E, who's really holding us by the throat, so they can continue to make money. And this change is not going to be about making money. If we don't move forward together, we don't move forward at all. Because, let's say all the rich white people can have solar, and let's say all the rich white people can have electric cars, and let's say all the rich white people can do this and that and the other thing. But you know what? Most people are not rich, and most people are not white. And we have to move forward together. We have to come together and figure out how we're going to do this differently. And that means working with people in communities where they are and helping people figure out what's best for their own community. And the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance does a lot of that work. Climate Reality Project does that work. San Diego 350 does that work. Francis helps us do that work. Stop STP&E does that work. We cannot afford to live and die by shareholders anymore. If a shareholder owns your life,
Yeah.
they don't care about you. They care about their money. That's what they care about.
Feel free to unmute if you have a question or raise your virtual hands. We'll take a stack.
Yes, any of those things.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you deal with ignorant people who have kind of ignorant opinions about climate change, and how do you approach them, or how do you, I mean, I'm not like going out into the streets or anything and being like, I'm going to pick a fight with
There's
you.
a lot of
How do
there's
you,
a lot of ways to approach them, and picking a fight with them is never the answer.
no.
As much as I might like to pick a fight sometimes, it's not helpful. It's not going to get you where you want to go. It's about entering at a lot of different places. It's about meeting people where they are. If somebody's telling you that they don't believe in climate change, they think it's all a big joke. I mean, I'm going to take you to the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is these people say, you're crazy, you're a lunatic, you're on the fringe, nobody really believes that, yada, yada, yada. To which I say, okay, let's say I'm crazy. Let's say that 95% of the scientists in the world are trying to pull a fast one. Let's say that all these left-wing progressives are really just trying to make noise. Let's say all that's true. Then let's say that we actually take the actions that they recommend. Let's say that we stop burning fossil fuels and we clean up our air. Let's say that we stop throwing plastic in the ocean and clean up our ocean. What is the absolute worst possible thing that's going to happen? You're going to get clean air. You're going to get clean ocean. You're going to get nice places to be. It's kind of like, sometimes in my head, I equate those people to young children who are sitting in their room that is piled high with clothes and junk food wrappers and candy wrappers and all this stuff. And you go inside and you say, clean up your room. Why should I clean up my room? Well, because at some point, that laundry and that trash is going to go over your head. So what's the worst possible thing that will happen if you clean up your room? You'll have a clean room. What if there is absolutely no other benefit to it? Then you have a clean room, you have a clean ocean, you have clean air. You don't have to use your emphysema inhaler every day. I mean, let's say that's true. I mean, I know it's not true, but you know what I mean. I mean, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is things have to change. We can't continue Do you know that do you know about the Great Pacific Garbage Reef?
Oh yeah, it's
You know that it is currently the size of Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, and Nevada.
oh my God.
That's only the top. That's the top layer. That's not even what's underneath it. We can't, we can't continue this. When I say this is not sustainable, it's not sustainable. We cannot continue business as usual behavior because business is not usual. Business is destructive and it has to change. And, I'm a psychologist. Frankly, you know what? One of the hardest things in the entire world is to change behavior. And this is behavior change on a very large scale. I mean, let's just say that you like sugar and you're going to make yourself stop having sugar. It is not easy. Not easy, but it's possible. So we are a society that is born and addicted to gas and oil. Plastic, our gas and oil, you know, it's all owned by the gas and oil industry, and they're all derivatives of gas and oil. When I put my water in this plastic bottle, do I know that it's made out of petroleum? I do. I have a metal can and I use that one sometimes, but it makes a lot of noise, so I use this one. And the glass one's really heavy and I drop it on my foot. So, someday we're going to come up with plastics that are made out of something better than gas and oil, but it hasn't happened yet. I see some notes in the chat that I didn't see earlier. You asked about, Francis, you asked about, was that due to the pandemic? I don't know.
Said that there was a moment in 2020 where we thought that some of the
Yes,
things
it was. It was because we stopped driving for about 15 minutes. It didn't last very long. Yes, 1,300 people, 100 died on the age last. Well, I didn't know that. Thank you for that information. I'm sure it was due to heat. Oh gosh, I don't know how to say that. Maybe Will and Lucy, do you know how to say?
it was
You take AJ.
yeah, during the pilgrimage,
Oh, I do know about that. I didn't
people
know that many people died, but I do know about that.
Yeah, that was just last week when that happened, or just a day ago when that was announced. Essie has her hand raised though.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Essie.
And you need to unmute.
Essie, do you want to unmute and ask me your question? Oh, there you
Okay.
are.
Yeah, I have two things to say. If somebody is
Okay.
not willing to, and they want to, say, oh, no, this is nothing, we are okay, and all that stuff. I've met people like that. First thing I ask him is, are you happy with your bills, electric bills? Most of them say, no, we are very happy, not happy. So that's one way of starting a conversation with naysayers. And the other one is talk about Greenpeace ship. There's two ships that Greenpeace has. It goes around the world cleaning the oceans. They should go and
There's
check
also
it.
something called the Great Ocean Cleanup. There's probably several organizations now that are doing amazing work. The Ocean
Yeah.
Conservancy is doing some good work.
Yeah,
There are some really, I don't remember who asked earlier about grassroots. I would say to you, do not create your own organization because there's a million of them out there. And you're going to get a lot more traction if you pitch in with somebody whose ideals you believe in and who you're willing to work with. I don't see any reason in the world that ASD and CRP can't become good friends. We're happy to support you. You guys come support us when we need it. Francis and I will continue to go to Sacramento and harass the people there into doing right.
Maybe Greenpeace can come here, or one of those ships can dock in San Diego.
5 years ago, there was a Greenpeace ship here, and they came and they showed us all their equipment, and we got to talk to the people that work there. So they do that. If you go on their website, I'm not exactly sure what, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was a few
Anyway,
years before that, and they called up Activist San Diego, and we were among the main sponsors of
Oh yeah. See?
hosting them in the harbor there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to that. It was really cool. I was really excited. They had some of the first of those those goggles where you see the world through the goggles, that they showed you undersea and what things look like.
Yeah.
I always
they
wanted to
came
be
to
on
San
Jacques Cousteau's
Francisco.
ship.
They came to San
Huh?
Francisco, and I went with one of my friends, and my friend, she almost joined them. They were coming out with bicycles going around, and they were taking people into the ship and showing the ship. Yeah, that's one way. The other way is also the presentation you just did is so good. It's so
Oh, thank you.
detailed, and maybe we can print more of those presentations and give it to people, hand it to people.
I am happy to. I cannot print the presentation because it belongs to the Climate Reality Project. But I will tell you what I am willing to do, and what my friend Susan is willing to do, and what the rest of the people in the Climate Reality Project here, our chapter in San Diego is about 400 people strong. We're
They can
willing to
teach
do a
you.
presentation for you anytime, anywhere, any place for any number of people. And that means 2 people, and that means 500 people. We will do those things. We will be there. We will be in your child's classroom. We will be at your church. We will be at your senior center. One day
Library.
I had to go out east, and I did 3 middle school classrooms, a library, and a senior center all in one day.
Wow, amazing.
But
And I do presentations on slightly different things as well. I have 2 related to plants, one on biodiversity and one on the importance of native plants. Plus, I have a couple composting related ones. One on the importance of composting, the why, and the other one on how to compost.
because all of these things are part of changing the climate. Climate change is, if you can imagine, like a huge Lego figure. Imagine the whole Earth made out of Legos. You cannot solve climate change by pulling one Lego apart. You have to pull them all apart and put them all where they go and clean up the mess. And that is slow, and it is not easy, but it can be done. And the more people who have their selves in the middle of it, the more of it gets done, the faster it gets done. Yes, Francis.
So, I guess I want to kind of ask about some of the big corporations that we're up against. It was great to see how many had made commitments to reduce their carbon footprint, but for instance, SDG, who we've already been speaking about, in California as a state, we have a lot more regulations, and we have stronger climate plans and goals, but it turns out SDG&E is owned by Sempra, and they're taking their profits from here, and that's going to do horrible things elsewhere, and the fracking, the natural gas. So I guess, my question is just how do we think about, when we think about these oil companies that just have the ability to just crush us, how do we attack that problem and remain hopeful there?
I did a presentation for something called the World Safety Organization in Vegas a number of years ago. And I had several Saudis in my audience, and I could see that they were upset, and that and one guy just raised his hand and he said, I don't know what to do. The oil companies control every single facet of my country. And he said, what do I do? And I said, well, here's the easy and the hard answer. just stop giving them your money. And that is both easy and really, really hard. You know, you stop, you stop buying your produce at Vaughn's and you start going to the farmer's market, or you start growing it in your backyard, or you find somebody who you find a local farmer who will bring your fruits and vegetables to your house. There are ways to do it. And there's something called ugly produce that is very, very, very reasonable. It's produce fetched from farms and it's not expensive. And they bring you fruits and vegetables every week. And you just pay a certain amount of money. But that money's going directly to a farmer. It's not going to a conglomerate. It's not going to places where people have a lot of money that they're using to do bad things.
Right on. So I think Will has a question, and then Cherry, if you want to make any closing remarks,
Sure.
and then tell people about a couple actions to take. Go ahead, Will.
Will?
So I had a conversation with one of my coworkers today, where I was mentioning that I was going to be part of this meeting. I'm sorry, the cat's on the keyboard.
You're just lucky
so-
mine's not on my keyboard right now, so.
Sunny is bad though.
Yeah. This is Miko. But so the conversation, it was kind of like this. He said, so I mean, dealing with climate change, I understand that it affects Barrio Logan. I understand that it affects like downtown, but here in City Heights, how does this affect me? And I was a little bit kind of stunned by the question, and at this point, I would respond with with what you just said, like, "Don't you like a nice place to live?" But I'm not quite sure that he that would get through to him. Like, if somebody posed to you a question like that, how would you respond?
In the front of my head or the back of my head? No. Let's see. Well, first of all, the air quality in City Heights is not very good. It's maybe a step up from Barrio Logan, but not a very big step. So you can start there. But
and right now I'm in Florence, Italy.
I'm sorry, what?
All right, go ahead. There was just someone was unmuted. I got it.
Oh, it happens. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
How to respond to someone.
Oh, yeah. How does it affect you in City Heights? Well, it affects you in City Heights because you're paying more money. You are paying more money for your food. You're paying more money for your electricity. You are living in an environment that is getting hotter and hotter every year, and where the prices will only go up and up. Climate change is also inflation. And inflation and climate change are directly related. The less food there is, the more expensive it will get. And the further down the road we go with climate change, the less nutrition is in our food. I believe the statistic right now is that out of, let's say in corn, we used to have 100% nutrition, there's now only 80% of the nutrition that there was in corn 20 years ago. And that is because of the way that the climate works on crops. So there's less nutrition. Now, let's say this person enjoys seafood. You don't have to live in the ocean to know that your fish are that you can eat tuna very much, because the tuna are poisoned with mercury, and you can't, the more plastic there is in the ocean, the more microplastics there are in every fish that you eat, and the more and more expensive things like shellfish get, because as the ocean acidifies, those creatures can't create shells anymore, and so they die. So food gets more expensive, electricity gets more expensive, and yes, housing gets more expensive. So how does it affect you? It affects you every day. If you breathe air on this planet, it affects you.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'll actually respond to that, and that also kind of responds to the second part of my question too. In that, like, if somebody confronts me about some other sort of microclimate, aside like some other neighborhood, oh, but how does this affect me in Poway? How does this affect me in Otay Ranch? You know, like, yeah, your response just kind of covered all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's not easy. And I invite you to, I mean, as we move together and work together, um you know, certainly there are lots of different things that you can learn about climate change that will give you more and more information to share. But also, the more you look at your own life and ways to change your own life, you see what you can do to make changes in the world. Like, um, I admire you right now that you have your windows open and your fan on and not AC on. I'm proud of you. I could not do this presentation if I did not have AC on right now because I wouldn't be able to talk. My voice would be gone. But I mean, using less energy, eating less meat. Do you guys know about the problem with meat? Do you know why you should change to a more vegetable-based protein diet?
It uses a lot of fossil fuels in the production of meat, right?
No, actually. Um, it's basic economics. So if I have, let's say I have 200 calories of food in my hands, right? And we're all hungry. And what I see right now on my screen is 5 pictures. And so if I have 200 calories of food, I give each of us 20 calories, right? No, 40 calories, right? Okay, so everybody's got 40 calories of food. Now, and that's if I have vegetables, like if I have corn or wheat or rice or those things, all beans, whatever. Um, if I take that corn, wheat, rice, whatever it is, and I feed it to a chicken, I only get back in nutrition, I only get back 150 calories. So now we're still all of at the same level of hunger, but now I only have 150 calories to distribute amongst the 5 of us. The bigger the animal gets, the less sustainable they become, up to the point where if I feed that corn, wheat, rice, beans to a cow, I only get back 20% of the calories that I put in it. Now, there are other reasons, like cows, of course, create methane, which is a climate change fuel, and so there's all kinds of things like that. But the basic economics of it, and I can send you the article if you want it. The basic economics of it, I was just totally shocked by.
Done. We may have to do a future meeting on that topic. I have one comment from Marie Johnson has asked, wanted to chime in before we close as well. Go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, good to see
Marie
Cherry.
Johnson.
Yeah, she's been on the station many times, and it's going to be more times in the future. I wanted to tag on to what Will was saying, and also Cherry. Will is talking about bringing it down to the kitchen table when he meets people to say, how does that affect me? And Cherry has addressed some of that. And I think that we need to pull our own numbers together and talk about flooding, destroying crops, scorched scorched earth, destroying crops. It's going to affect how you protect your family and your children. That's it. Kitchen table.
Thank you. Right on. Cherry, any closing words that you have that you want to share with us?
If you ever want to go through Al Gore's training, I can keep you guys in the loop and let you know when they take place about 2 or 3 times a year in some city in the world, and the next one's in Rome. I won't be going to that. But they do from time to time have online trainings. It's a pretty intensive training. I know that when I went to my training, it was 3 of the most intense days in my entire life. And I've been to graduate school, so that ought to tell you something. And at the end of it, I went forward and spoke the truth, and that's what I'm still doing. So if you ever want to get that education, and if you want to follow Climate Reality Project or join Climate Reality Project, you can be members of 2 organizations at once.
Thank you so much. Yes, here at Activist San Diego, we consider ourselves an organization of organizers. So, we are all intersectional and collaborative. We work in a lot of different coalitions and alliances, and definitely have friendships. And we're happy to be. I'm personally happy to have gotten the opportunity to hang out with Cherry several times now. She was my Sacramento. Yeah, so the as Activist San Diego, we definitely are not trying to replicate or create new orgs or pull away from others. In fact, we work to amplify the work of other orgs. And now I actually want to share with everyone an action that I'm going to ask everyone to take. We're just going to focus, well, I'm going to focus on two actions. Both are very important. Let me start with actually the one that I mentioned. We mentioned the Tijuana River and the watershed. And just this morning, actually, sorry, let me back up and state that Activist San Diego has officially joined the Stop the Tijuana Landfill Coalition. We were invited to join, and our board voted last board meeting. We were therefore then invited to speak at a press conference that happened this morning. Sergio Padilla, one of our board members, and I went down there, and we're able to join Senator Steve Padilla and Mayor Paloma Aguirre of Chula Vista, no, of Imperial Beach, and down for a press conference, and many other organizations. And the Tijuana landfill, there is a proposal. It is a private corporation. Actually, first off, I'll say did something really shady. A couple of years ago, they put a ballot measure onto the ballot that sounded like they were just asking people to vote to create another recycling center. But what they didn't really, people didn't read in the fine print was that, 2% of the place was going to be a recycling center and 98% was going to be a landfill. Now, as Cherry mentioned, the Tijuana River is already one of the disaster zones, a crisis zone for basically up the Tijuana River. We've got flows of toxic, all sorts of raw sewage, basically. And as you may know, for the last 900 plus days, the beaches down by Chula Vista and Imperial Beach have been closed because basically if you go in, you're going to get sick. E. coli, strep, they're finding COVID, SARS, HIV, all sorts of things. And they've also shown that aerosolizes and gets in the air. So anyway, bad situation already. And this corporation is trying to build this landfill within the watershed, which would make things even worse. Okay, so the creative legislative solution that they have come up with in order to block this is there's 2 different bills. I'll just mention one of them. Basically would get the government to say we won't allow any permits to any new landfills within protected watersheds. So sorry, you just can't do it. We're not going to give you the permit. That legislation, that bill is moving through this 2 different assembly committees tomorrow, which is why the press conference happened today. You might be able to see news about it if you watch the evening news. Any of the evening news is tonight. We should be on it. You can learn more. I'm sure tomorrow there will be a lot of news articles about it as well. But the basically ask is that you call your state senator and your state assembly member, and you tell them you want them to do, just say, do everything you can to stop the Tijuana landfill. There is a bill number. I will send an email out to the Activist San Diego list with all the bill numbers. So keep an eye out for that, maybe within the next 24 hours. So step one, stop the Tijuana River landfill. There is actually if you just Google Stop Tijuana Landfill, there's a website that the coalition has put up with also all the information. So and there's even a petition there. Second thing is what Dr. Robinson and I were just up in Sacramento last week, lobbying on and advocating for. And this is about the oil setbacks. You may remember that environmental groups had a huge success in 2022, passing SB 1137. And what that landmark environmental justice bill did, it said that residents have the right to live and work and play away from toxic oil and gas extraction sites in their neighborhoods. This bill would then require a 3,200 foot health and safety setback between oil and gas drilling and any kind of, housing, schools, hospitals, places that should be protected. And now, despite this passing, the oil companies have spent, I think it was over $20 million doing a ballot referendum to try to repeal this. So keep in mind that there will be something on the ballot that we need to stop. That is in the November ballot. Put a pin in that. Now, in the short term right now, there's also a housing bill that was introduced. It's called AB 2243 by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks up in Oakland. And now this housing bill is trying to be a good bill. It's saying, we desperately need to create more affordable housing. And now what this bill is basically saying is they want exemptions from that oil setback rule. They're saying, well, we know that there is land available, and if we have to build housing, let's just do it there. But we will put in air filters. We'll make a requirement for a certain type of air filter and try to make it safe. Now, we don't have time to go into all the details. If anyone has questions, happy to fill you all in. And again, look out for the email. But basically, no amount of air filter. Well, this air filter is already required in new builds anyway. But, the air filter only works if you keep all of your windows closed. And if you don't go outside. So it's pretty impossible to live in your house and never go outside. Plus, these air filters have to be changed every 6 months to be effective. All sorts of problems with this. But basically, they're saying that basically low-income people need housing and they don't deserve safe housing. We can compromise their health of the public because we just want to pretend like we're solving the problem. So what we are asking everyone to do on this is to call their assembly member and their state senator again and ask them to demand that they amend or oppose AB 2243 and say that you do not support any exemptions to oil setbacks and that, all people deserve safe housing, not just any kind of housing. So those are the two actions. As Martin asked, what is it we can do as grassroots organizers that are connected to this? These are the things. These are the wonky bills that get, are difficult to honestly to keep up with. I'm grateful that a lot of organizations put these on our radar and then give us opportunities to support. On behalf of Activist San Diego, we joined the California Environmental Justice Alliance and an organization called Vision, who sponsored our travel up there to go advocate on behalf of our organization there. So that is all. Keep your eye out for emails with further information about these things. I hope maybe Sherry, you can put your website in the chat as well as any contact information if people can get a hold of you. And then I'm going to hand the stage over to Will to close us out. I do want to say after he closes us out, I'm going to stop the live stream. Don't feel like you have to rush out. We can have a little casual chat time at the end. But I'll hand it over to Will.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to our community meeting tonight. And thank you for Dr. Cherry Robinson for being here and for this great presentation. I think we all know some different organizations that either would want to or need to hear this kind of work. And thank you for posting your contact information too. I hope that we can get that out to everybody in like a follow-up afterward, after this maybe. But I wanted to say too that we're going to be having another community meeting next month. We haven't quite nailed down the guests. We have a couple invites that are out. But we'll inform everybody about it a lot sooner than this last one. We're very sorry about the kind of like last minute invites out, and we'll definitely do a little bit better this next month. And then also to anybody else who's new, feel free to welcome us. I know several of you found us on social media, so thank you for joining us, and please continue to follow us. And if you can, we are also we are accepting donations. We are a nonprofit organization. We're an all volunteer run organization. We have our radio station. We have our board meetings. But we have these community meetings, and we try to be out there in the community as well, providing whatever like logistical help that we could possibly give to any sort of protests, actions, demonstrations, etc. So I guess that will be that's pretty much it for me. Feel free to stick around, and Francis, go ahead and to take over the social time. And I adjourn this meeting.